Today, we're diving into the middle ear to talk about two conditions that can really mess with your hearing, but in totally different ways: cholesteatoma and otosclerosis. We're going to break down what they are, how you can tell them apart, and what the game plan is for dealing with them.
So, have you ever thought about it? What actually happens when that super delicate, finely tuned machine inside your ear gets thrown off balance? It's an amazing system, but when one little part of it goes wrong, the effects can be huge. Before we get into the problems, though, let's quickly go over how it's supposed to work.
Okay, here's the plan for today. First, we'll cover the basics of how your ear actually hears. Then we'll compare the signs of these two very different conditions. We'll look at what's really happening inside. Is it a growth or a blockage? After that, we'll explore the treatments and recovery. And finally, we'll touch on that big long-term question: surgery or hearing aids? Let's get right into it.
All right, first up, how your ears hears. To really get what goes wrong, you have to get what right looks like first. And for the middle ear, it all comes down to this really important normal piston motion.
So here's how it works. A sound wave travels into your ear and makes your eardrum vibrate. Simple enough, right? Well, that eardrum is attached to three little bitty bones, and this is the magic part. They all move together in this perfect piston-like motion. It's kind of like a tiny little engine pumping that sound signal deeper into your inner ear. That motion, well, it's absolutely crucial for you to hear clearly.
Okay, so now that we know how things are supposed to run, let's talk about what happens when they don't. We're going to look at these two conditions, which, believe it or not, have completely different warning signs. So what should you be looking for?
And wow, when you put them side by side, the difference is just night and day. With the cholesteatoma, you're often dealing with things like drainage, infections, and a very strong, unpleasant smell. Otosclerosis, on the other hand, none of that. It's typically just a slow, steady hearing loss. No infection, no smell. One is literally destroying the bones, while the other is freezing them solid. And this quote just hits it home perfectly. Dr. Scott Young, from our source material, says it plain as day. I'll walk in a room and almost instantly it can smell it. That puppy has a big, nasty smell to it. That smell is such a powerful clue for doctors, and it's important to know it has absolutely nothing to do with a person's hygiene. It's the condition itself.
So we know the symptoms are completely different, but why? Let's pull back the curtain and look at what's actually happening deep inside the middle ear. What's the root cause? Is it a growth or is it more of a blockage?
Okay, so a cholesteatoma is basically a skin growth. Think of it like a little cyst that decided to form in a place it has no business being, the middle ear. The real problem is that this growth can get infected, and when it does, it's incredibly destructive. It can literally eat away at those tiny, delicate bones we just talked about. Now, otosclerosis is a totally different story. The name itself gives you a huge clue. Oto for ear, and sclerosis, which means hardening or bone growth. So this isn't some foreign growth invading the space. No, this is the body itself going into overdrive and building extra bone right around those middle ear bones, cementing them in place and stopping that vital piston motion dead in its tracks. And that right there is the fundamental difference. You have to get this. With cholesteatoma, the bones are being eaten away by a destructive growth. With otosclerosis, the bones are being frozen in place by the body's own abnormal bone production. Two completely different mechanical problems that, as you can guess, require two completely different solutions.
Which of course brings us to treatment. I mean, if the problems are that different, it makes perfect sense that the ways to fix them are going to be worlds apart, right? So let's compare the surgical game plans.
So let's break this down. For cholesteatoma, the surgery is often something called a radical mastoidectomy. You can think of this as a serious clean-out operation. The surgeon's number one goal is to get in there and remove every last bit of that growth and any infected bone. For otosclerosis, the surgery is way more delicate. It's a stapes mobilization or a stapendectomy. The goal here isn't to remove disease, it's to restore movement. They might chip away the extra bone, or they might replace the tiny frozen bone with a microscopic plastic or metal part. So, what's recovery like? Well, after that big mastoidectomy for the cholesteatoma, it can be pretty tough. The main priority is just getting rid of the disease, and sometimes that means the surgeon has to remove some of the core parts of your hearing system. Unfortunately, that often means you're left with significant and usually permanent hearing loss. Recovery from the stapes surgery is a different beast entirely. It's all about trying to get that piston motion back online, but here's the catch: the problem can come back. See, the surgery fixes the immediate blockage, but it doesn't stop your body's tendency to create that extra bone. So over time, things can freeze up all over again.
So where does that leave us in the long run? Especially when surgery isn't always a one-and-done cure. This brings up a really critical conversation you might have to have with your doctor. At what point do you shift from thinking about more surgery to thinking about hearing aids?
This is where it becomes a very personal decision. Hearing aids often become the best path forward if otosclerosis comes back after a surgery or two. It's a sign that your body is just programmed to keep creating that bone. They're also the way to go if that bone growth starts creeping into the inner ear, or to help manage the hearing loss after a cholesteatoma surgery. Basically, it's a great option when you and your doctors decide it's time to take a break from more surgeries.
And that brings us to the end. The real goal here was to give you a solid understanding of these two conditions so you can feel more in control. So the final question isn't for us, it's for you. Now that you have this knowledge, what are the key questions you're going to ask your doctor to really take charge of your own hearing health journey?